Welcome back. My name is Matt Reiners, co-founder of Eversound, and with me today is my friend James Lee. James is the senior living guy and is the CEO and co-founder of Bella Groves, a dementia education company in San Antonio. He's also the owner of Bearwise Consulting and the host of the Level Up Leadership podcast. In addition to all this, James just welcomed his second child, Grayson, into the world. Thanks for joining me today, James.
That was awesome, Matt. Happy to be here, buddy.
Awesome. So let's jump into it. So I know you have a diverse background when it comes to senior living. Can you share a little bit about your story?
Yeah, absolutely. I love telling my story because it starts from, I think, the most important job in our field, which is caregiver. It was the first thing I did 13 years ago, mid-20s, and it was a job that I didn't intend on having for a very long time. It was something in between other kind of life plans. And, I'm so glad I did it. And the only reason I did it, Matt, is, I don't know if you know this, but the place was across the street from my apartment at the time. And wow. I got a job there because it was easy to get to. And I wanted to save money on gas and all that. But thank God it was there. Thank God I lived in that apartment randomly. And I got a job as a concierge answering phones on the weekends. And then I picked up a few caregiving jobs after that. And I was hooked. I was done after that. I was like, whatever my other life plans were, this feels awesome. I'm going to stick with it and see where it goes. And that was 13 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love it. And over those 13 years, I know you've done a bunch of different things in senior living and definitely have held some leadership positions. I consider you one of the leadership gurus, whether from your LinkedIn post or your Level Up podcast, of course. And I'm curious, what does leadership mean to you?
Wow. It's such a big thing to try and describe, but I think leadership is something you define for a current period of time in your life. And then probably if you ask me that 2 years from now, the definition will change. But here's kind of how I define it based on today. I define leadership for me as continuously improving myself so that I can help a group of people synchronize their purpose. Right? There's a couple parts of that. It's like I'm constantly improving myself so that I can be good at helping a group of people to synchronize their purpose.
I love that.
I think that's what leadership looks like for me right now. And the whole premise of like doing Level Up podcast and doing Bearwise Consulting, which is really coaching, like it's executive coaching to leaders of, their own businesses. And then through my current company, Bella Groves, the operating part, all I'm really doing, Matt, is like, I'm constantly trying to improve my skills and abilities, whether that's like empathy skills or financial management, whatever it is, I'm leveling up my own skills in order to help a group of people to like synchronize their purpose. I mean, isn't that any organization? Doesn't that resonate with you and Eversound?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, from an outside perspective, right, when people think of leadership, it's all about how I interact or manage the people below me. But I love your take on it of how do I level up myself? How do I become better? How do I, stay focused on that personal development and growth to really help level up all of those around me? And I love that take on it, and it makes so much sense. And I think I can really relate to that with our own team and how we can continually do that every single day.
Yeah, it's the unspoken precedent to being in front of a group of people is that you're always working on yourself. So that's been a long time principle of mine for a very long time, that the best thing you can do for the people you love is to level up, to improve your own abilities, right? So if I go to school, if I work out, if I eat healthy, all of those things improve the lives of the people I love. So that's always first. And if you do that, then what are you doing with all of that? So that's the second part of that leadership definition, which is synchronizing people's purpose, and purpose, not passion. So that's specifically important for me too.
Yeah, and it makes a lot of sense. And I know, one of the things you talk about, publicly and with your team is being problem oriented versus solutions oriented. And can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, I'd love your take on this too, by the way. and it's not just to try and be clever or think of something new, but I realize that, Matt, if we're being honest about this industry that we love, and when I say industry, I mean taking care of seniors, taking care of families, right? If we get honest about what's frustrating people with the status quo right now, I think part of it is because we all think that the product we have in senior living is care. And when we all think that the product we sell is care, we've all got a clearly defined solution for that. And we've packaged up our version of that solution. And then we go to town trying to sell that solution to people. Right? Sound familiar?
Sounds absolutely.
So, yeah. So, and I think when people they talk about being solutions oriented, I'll take a relevant example of the times right now, which is employees and hiring and turnover. And, that's a challenge. But rather than leaning into learning about the problem from the perspective of the people that we're complaining about, why can't we get people to work? We're not looking at that from a problem orientation. We're looking at that from a solutions orientation. We should pay them more. We should put our job ads here. That's solutions focused, right? But if you're problems focused, you're trying to understand the problem from the perspective of the people who are experiencing that problem, right? So in senior living, just to kind of reel this back a little bit, if we're solutions focused, we care only about our version of the solution and we're going to try to sell that. But problems orientation means you're going to spend a lot of time, energy, and effort. It's going to be a specific component of your strategy that we need to understand our seniors. Mm-hmm. We're going to go do surveys. We're going to go talk to people. We're going to market validate. We're going to do research, and we're going to ask and find out, is this a problem that you're facing, right? So I think the clearest example I can give of that, Matt, is if you were to ask most people in senior housing, who is your biggest competitor, right? They're not going to say that assisted living building down the street. They're not going to say the new senior living place opening up a couple blocks away. Do you know what they're probably going to say?
The home?
Yeah, most people are trained to say that. Most people are just oh yeah, biggest competition is people's homes. And if you think about it, it's that's the biggest opportunity, right? The problem facing our customers is that maybe they don't want to live in a senior living community. Well, why don't they want to live in a senior living community? And then that question starts to help you kind of think about, well, how do we look at the problem from their perspective? And then once you really understand that, you can really start looking at senior housing as a hub of solutions, not the only solution.
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. And when I think about it, the solutions oriented approach is almost further down in the funnel, right? Of kind of showcasing what it is, but it's almost about that discovery and really understanding what the problems are being, for each individual too, is probably a little bit different problems, but how do we talk to them? How do we understand that? How do we get to know them? And they might say it's X, but really it might be Y, and they're kind of understanding why, it's not doing that. And I know for us, right, and I see this time and time again with other small businesses and startups is they go and try and create a product that is solutions oriented, right? Right. But it's really not solving any problems. And you need to go out there and have those tough discussions and have those conversations and really understand if there's a problem that you're fixing, a problem that you're helping, because some of the most successful companies that I've been around, it's those that are helping to solve a problem. And I could design and develop anything behind a closed door, but not necessarily going to be successful in the long run because it's not helping to solve that problem.
That's totally on the mark. It's if you become obsessed about your solution, you stop listening to your customers. You talk over your customers. You tell them why your solution is great. But if you build your team around, let's always have processes and budgets for understanding people's problems, the solution is infinite. It just changes based on people's problems, right? And how many times in life have you ever seen where a person's problem just stays static? How quickly do problems change for people?
Hourly, yeah. I mean,
solutions should be as flexible as people's problems are fluid. So I think if you build your team around problem orientation, you become less obsessed about your own brilliance, and you really start focusing more on caring about the problem from people's perspectives.
Yeah, and it's kind of getting out of our own head. And I mean, there's not a lot of brilliance here, so I would never get caught in that. No, it makes perfect sense. And, I think it's a kind of a great segue into, that we're both entrepreneurs. We both help run small businesses. I'm curious, like, if you're seeing anything in this space as an opportunity for others. Because I know when we talked about this, James, you had a very unique view, which I think a lot of other people are kind of stuck in as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I spent all of my senior living career prior to this year in some form of climb the ladder, right? If you look at my LinkedIn, you'll see the progression. You'll see caregiver, activities director, sales counselor, sales director, trainer, and then it just goes up the chain. And then at one point, I made a move over to operations because I realized all of the solutions, ironically, all of the things that I wanted to do, operations was the kind of stopgap. They were the ones who were like, go or no go. So I thought, well, let me go to operations and learn my way up there. So I did that. I kind of climbed multiple ladders to try and get to this magical position where I was going to be endowed with, empowerment and budgets and teams and like, okay, James, you made it. Go make a difference. It sounds really silly, but I know a lot of people can relate to that. And I realized at some point, Matt, that I'm chasing something that I could just be building something of my own. And I'm going to go through the same stress. I'm going to go through the same, challenges, but the reward at the end of the day is freedom, flexibility, autonomy, true autonomy, right? And it takes a little bit of risk, and it takes a little bit of, courage, and it takes all of those things. But man, our industry has people who have that in spades. So I think the future of our industry is actually small business. And that's also part of why I branched off to do my consulting work. I'm all in on small business in our industry specifically, because I think that taking care of people doesn't require, I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but taking care of people doesn't require scale. And sometimes scale actually gets in the way of that. So I would love for there to be thousands and thousands and thousands of small business owners that come from traditional senior living and have broken off to do their own things. Imagine how much our innovation in our industry would leap forward if our current regional directors, VPs, they all became their own CEOs of a 1Z, 2Z community.
And I think you bring up a great point, because my experience in working with, some of these bigger players who have those regionals, home office and stuff, there's just so much red tape to cut and kind of just getting through. And we talk about an industry that wants to be innovative and stuff, but it's tough to be innovative when you can't make those decisions and you have to go get the okay and the approval of the person above that person. And it's slowing everything down from what I've seen. And I think, to your point about it takes courage, it takes, it's definitely scary when I took the jump, in my early 20s, there's a lot of self-doubt, a lot of questions that would come up about, will this be successful? And one thing that I've learned is, hey, it may or may not be successful, but I'll learn a lot during it. And that will just help to level me up during that process. So we're going to keep a competition of who says level up the most here.
Yeah,
so,
you owe me a nickel every time you say that.
I know you nickel.
Actually, I think I owe you a nickel every time you say it. That's how sponsorship works.
Okay. All right. Well, we're going to keep dropping it.
There we go. That's right.
But I mean, I think you make a great point. And I think too, when you kind of are in that small business, and I know I've talked to you, I've talked to other small business owners, especially in senior living, they're in the mentality of, hey, if it's going to help the residents, let's do it. Right.
Yeah.
It's not the political game that they're trying to play to kind of work up that ladder and do all that stuff, which you probably know all about that, but it's all about how do we care for our seniors? How do we help them? And how do we put the the infrastructure in place to really do that. I think you're definitely onto something with that small business mentality, or even like what that actually looks like in practice.
Yeah, and I hope more people go there. And in fact, part of my big picture of how I hope to serve this industry is to help other people take that leap from kind of corporate world into doing their own thing. And there's plenty of partners. I bet just between you and me, Matt, we could come up with a coalition of people who have expertise in funding, who have expertise in real estate, who have expertise in, acquisitions, business formation. These are things that people in our industry feel like, oh my God, I can't fathom, learning how to do all of that. But my God, we have people who are like evacuating 100 residents in the middle of a hurricane. If you can figure that out, we can show you how to build an LLC,
Right.
So small business, I think, is not for these geniuses of the world. It's if you've got passion and purpose and you feel like, I want to go try and make a difference, innovation and trying solutions, all of that comes from small business. And, isn't that what our country's made off of, is small business? So I'm all in.
No, I love it. I love it. And yeah, and I think too, with the small business, to your point too, of helping people to form that LLC, sometimes people are afraid to ask for help. And even just life's an open book test. If you ask me, if I were to go and do something, why wouldn't I go ask my friend and kind of just pick their brain, buy them coffee, and just kind of figure out how they went about it? Because, I don't need to reinvent the wheel here. I think there's a lot of times where I get in my own head of oh, no one's done this ever before. I need to do this. But there's so much books. There's so much stuff you can Google. I've learned so much from YouTube videos. It just blows my mind. It's like I've learned more from YouTube than I did in college. I'll have to admit. But
100%. Yeah, we got to learn from each other. And think about how Eversound started, for you. So I'm dropping your name so that it equals out the nickels.
Of course.
But just think about for Eversound, if the whole concept of great innovation or just spin-offs or departments of bigger corporations, Eversound should only exist as a sub-department of Bose or Sony or, so some other company, right? But it didn't. It came from you guys. So I think that's kind of the idea here, is that if our industry wants to leap forward in innovation, our industry doesn't have a good track record of sponsoring innovation internally. So maybe the best way to do that is create tons of spin-off routes for small business owners.
It's kind of what we need, especially in this day and age. And, James, last question here, because I know people are kind of curious as you look into your crystal ball and into the future, but if you could leave other, leaders, small business owners, senior living providers, even on the vendor side, but with just 3 key takeaways to really help guide them over the next 12 months, what would you say?
Yeah. I love this question. It's a challenging question. I don't have a crystal ball. I'm looking through the same front windshield that you are. So is this the best guess, coming from me? But here, the 3 things that I would be focused on, or I am focused on here for me, going back to something we talked about, is not be a problem solver, but be a problem understander, right? Understand problems. When you say be a problem solver, people tend to jump ahead to the solution. But when you say, guys, we're going to be a team of problem understanders, that means we're going to research, we're going to listen, we're going to talk to customers, we're going to go talk to people who choose not to be customers and ask them, why are you not customers, right? I think thinking about the employee crisis, if we learn the problem from their perspective, right? Why are you not enticed to come work in this industry? I think we can learn a lot. So number 1, be a problem understander would be a great focus for the next year. 2, I would say, is be I'm going to call it a 2nd degree networker. And what I mean by that is a lot of people in our industry tend to focus on their 1st degree connections. I'm sure that you go to, it's conference season right now. How many times do you go there and you're like, those people, I see them at other conferences and they're with the same people every time, right?
All the time.
They go to dinner with people who they know. They sit at the tables with people that they know. And I get it, we're social human beings. But I think in particular, the second degree networkers, they're the ones who are like, I need to go find those novel connections. We all talk about innovation in our industry, but it's most likely not going to come from conversations with people you've known for 15 to 20 years, right? I have loved getting to get to know you, but we haven't had any like personal conversation before, but 6 to 9 months ago, right?
Something like that. Yeah.
So you are a new friend, a new colleague from a second degree networking, right? So do you know why metaphors work, for people? It's like the way I think about metaphors is like it helps you understand what you already know, right? Somebody gives you a metaphor, you're like, oh, I didn't see it that way. It just gives you insight to something you already kind of knew, right? Yeah. The second degree connection is like a metaphor. It's somebody who helps you understand what you already know. And what we already know as an industry is that we want to make a difference for people that are aging. We want to make a difference for people with dementia, et cetera, et cetera. But it's the second degree novel connections that are probably going to help us get there. So that's number 2. This would make a great level up episode, by the way. So you're going to have to send me this recording.
I'll send it to you.
And then I'm just going to put it on as my episode. And then number 3, this is I've ridden this horse before COVID. I'm going to ride it till I retire. I would say double down, triple down on leadership skills development on your team. Like if you're talking about protect the mother lode right now, the mother lode are your leadership team. It's the skill sets of your leadership people. So a lot of people are talking about, managing expenses and focusing on priority number 1 and, sales, and not that any of those things are not important, but I think right now, what would trump self-care is investing in leadership skills, right? Like giving me a gift card to go get a massage is going to help me for an hour. But if you help me to understand leadership skills and to be more effective as a manager, as a leader of other people, that's going to last me a very long time. And so, I was talking to somebody this morning, and this kind of thing came out in our conversation. There's a difference between being nice and being kind, right? Like nice makes you feel good about me while I'm there. Kind makes you feel good about yourself when I leave, right? Kindness is candor. Kindness is vulnerability. Kindness is having tough conversations. And I think in this case, kindness is helping you build leadership skills. And that's what's going to help sustain you, not tacos. And tacos will sustain you sometimes. Yeah. But I think you know what I'm, trying to get at. So 1 is be a problem understander. 2 is be a second degree networker. And 3 is triple down on leadership skills training.
Yeah, no, and I love it. And I think to your last point there, it's such a great point too. I mean, like, yeah, the massage is great just for that kind of surface level for that hour that it's going to happen, but it's how do we take it a step further? And how do we just continue to grow? And I look at leadership skills, right? That's going to be helping that individual, but it's also going to be helping everyone around them. Yeah. And as an organization, getting into that mindset, and doing that, because all the pizza parties in the world might be sustaining and, for that 30 minutes that you're eating it with the nap after, but how do we take it a level deeper to really be kinder, right? Yeah. And kinder to ourselves, kinder to our team, kinder to our leaders, and give them the tools, the resources, and the encouragement that they need to not only be successful for them, but helping the others around them be successful as well.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Being kind takes time. It takes empathy. It takes understanding. To be nice, you need a credit card. That's it. I'm not saying don't be nice. We still need to be nice,
of course.
But I think if we go past that, if we're like, okay, if we really try to understand what's causing the burnout, what's causing the detachment to the mission, what's causing all of this frustration, if you level up, well, there it is again. If you level up your skills and you feel more effective in your job and you feel more equipped to help other people who are feeling stressed to manage their stress, man, you've made people's lives better. You didn't just give them donuts. So keep doing the nice stuff, but transcend, go to the kind.
I love it. Well, I
Yeah.
want to thank my guest, James Lee, for joining us here today. James, it's been awesome chatting with you, and I've really enjoyed our time here together.
Always fun talking to you, Matt. This is good. And looking forward to seeing you again, whenever the next, conference is, but hope it's not another year from now.
Agreed. Agreed.
Yeah.